Hi, I'm Scott Banks with Absolute Bikes in Salida, and give you a brief rundown on why it's a good thing to do to overhaul your fork per the manufacturer's recommendations. So today we got a Fox Vanilla, which is a coil spring, 140 travel. A lot of Fox forks will have the travel on the back of the leg, depending on the year. Per recommendation on Fox, oil change every 100 hours. So what that encompasses is pulling the lowers out, bleeding the damper leg, inspecting and cleaning everything. What we do is we like to say to put new seals in it, because if the seals are nicked or damaged, when we put new oil in it, it's going to move the new oil through the seals and you're going to have to do it all over again. So whether you can do this on a bike or off the bike, it doesn't really matter. But the first thing to do is to make sure that everything is as clean as you can get it on the fork. Take your rag and put it on top of the dust wiper seal and floss it. And what that does, it gets all the dirt out of the top of the seal. I have seen forks that have been rebuilt that have a bunch of dirt in the bottom of the stanchions. And that's also something that you want to do every time you ride the bike if you can. Get all the dirt away from the top of the seal. That dirt will migrate into the fork. Before you take your fork apart, the best thing to do is to go to foxracingshocks.com. Go to the service part of the website and make sure that you know what year and make your fork is. It'll have videos on how to take it apart, how to inspect everything. It'll have an oil chart, which is really, really key. The oil chart also has what type of Fox Racing Shock oil that will go in the fork. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the lower screws and bolts, and that's what holds the bottom of the fork, the lowers, onto the internals. So we use a deep well 10mm 6-point socket. 6 points are better than 12. It grabs all the sides of the nut. We're going to back this out. And there's a crush washer between the nut and the lower of the fork. Sometimes that'll be captive, sometimes it'll come off. The Fox Racing Shocks wiper kit, seal kit, has new ones of these. So you can just usually unthread these through the shaft. And you want to do both sides. And if it's stuck like that, just come in with a pair of side cutters and just cut it off. This is one of the benefits to take your fork to have it serviced by a local bike shop. This is a really cool tool from Fox, and what this is going to do is it's going to thread onto the bottom of the piston shaft. We're going to thread it on about halfway, and that protects the threads. The piston shaft in the bottom of the lowers is a press fit, so we need to use a hammer to get it off. So what I do is I'll pull down on the fork lowers as I hit it inwards, and that breaks the press fit seal, as you can see there. Now oil's going to come out of here, so doing this one time, one leg, makes it a little easier. Make sure you've got a small bottle to catch the oil that's going to come out. This leg's going to have 30 cc's. We may not have that much coming out. The customer did say it was, and it's very black. And the black on a vanilla is wearing of some of the aluminum spring collar pieces, and hopefully not part of the lowers stanchions on the fork. If the oil in here coming out of any suspension fork is not clear, it means that there's a lot of water intrusion, dirt intrusion, bits of metal. So that's probably enough that we're going to get out of there. We're going to do the damper side, which is the drive side of the fork, and this is going to have 160 cc's. If you don't have this tool, be very careful. You can thread the nut back on until it's at least threaded halfway through the flat part. You're going to put the socket on, and you're going to smack it, and take it off. If you don't have enough thread engagement here, you're going to strip both pieces. You see that oil is a lot cleaner. The reason why the Fox has 160 cc's of oil on the drive side is because that's what controls the damping cartridges. It's good to work over a trash can that's got some paper in here because the residual oil that we can't all catch is going to fall off into the bottom instead of getting on the floor. And then just slide the lowers out. What I'll do is I'll leave the lowers with the dropouts down so that it helps drain the oil out. And now we can wipe down the stanchions and see if there's any damage. One of the reasons why you want to overhaul your fork, at least change the oil, get the dirt out. This fork, that was the most amount of movement all the time it was getting, and there was dirt packed into the lowers and it wore the stanchions out, and that is, it's not safe, and it's always going to clog the porting for the upper bushing as well as impregnate the bushing with dirt and bits of metal, so it's going to wear out even faster. So on a vanilla, it's a coil spring. On a float or an F chassis, it's an air spring. So on this fork, there's a steel coil spring in here, and this is the preload. This looks exactly like an air cap on a float on an air fork. Make sure it's a vanilla, because if you break this, it's a $30 part, and every once in a while it happens. So with this leg, there's really nothing that we can do. We can take it apart, inspect it. There's no other oil that goes in here. This is the damping cartridge, so we have our rebound and our high-speed compression, which is otherwise known as a lockout. This is an open bath or an OB type damper, which means that the oil is shared by the lower of the fork, which lubricates the bushings and the seal. And on newer forks, it's also called a open bath, or it's a fit damper. A fit damper is going to have a black knob on the top of the fork, whereas an open bath has a red. The fit damper is going to have a red knob on the bottom that's rebound. And it's a bladder, so it uses a lot less oil, and it's separated from the lowers. So we're going to bleed the damper on this fork. Best thing to do is you either use a small spring, a paper clip, or a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench. And this is a trick that was shown to me by Mike, who works for Fox, and he does all the races in the big trailer. So instead of taking apart this assembly where there's 3 little balls and springs, we're just going to push up against the rebound washer stack, and we're going to be able to drain the rest of most of the fluid out of here. And if you milk the damper and the seal head, the rebound seal head is lower, we'll get most of the fluid. You'll want to do this a couple strokes. We'll go through the lowers on the fork, let it sit. We'll do this a couple more times. This oil is really clear. If the oil is really dark and was contaminated, it is best to pull the cartridge out of the stanchions and to fully inspect it. And we're going to leave that now, and we're going to look at the lowers. So next thing we're going to do is, because we want it to be the less dirt inside the lowers, just wipe out the top of this lip seal. These blue seals are aftermarket. They're not a Fox seal. It's a non-Fox company. They put a lot more friction and drag on the stanchions, which can incorporate wearing the stanchions anodizing out faster. So now we're going to pull these out of the fork, and it's easier than you think it is. So these aftermarket seals have a plastic urethane non-rubber scraper seal, and then underneath it is a oil control seal. So we're going to pull out the scraper seals first. Best thing to do is take the lowers, lay them on your workbench, and if you have a downhill metal tire lever Park Tools at TL5, or you have a 17 millimeter open wrench, either one of these is going to work well. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the lip of the tool behind the part of the blue seal and gently pull it out. that took the oil control seal. So there's the wiper seal, and the oil control seal is still in there. So we're going to grab that. So you want to make sure that the tool is actually stabbing either the seal, the oil control seal, the dust wiper. If this fork had OEM seals, factory seals, there's going to be a wiper ring. And this foam ring helps keep the bushing, which is tan, lubricated and cleaner. So sometimes if you have factory seals, you can grab the foam ring with the tool and you'll be able to pull the whole seal out. If you go too far in there, you damage the bushing, and damaged bushings are not easy to repair. All right, again, cleanliness, especially inside the lowers, is really, really key. You can have a lot of dirt in here. So what we're gonna do is using a bunch of clean, fresh rags, whether they're cloth, they're old dish towels, they're the blue shop towels that are disposable. We're gonna use a really long pair of needle nose pliers. So the first thing we're gonna do is spray rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, down into each part of the lower, and that's gonna help break the surfactant of the fork oil. Surfactant being what makes the fork oil cling to everything and be really slippery. So work over the trash can with newspaper in it. We're going to take rag, we're just going to start pushing it down, and also be real careful of not scratching the metal. If you don't have a pair of long needle nose pliers and got a piece of wood, this is easier. Best thing to do is to get on the factory website, get the instructions, read them, follow them, watch the videos. They'll make it a lot faster. These are essentially ready to go. And again, I'm just going to wipe the lowers down because this Fox coating does get damaged with even the slightest cleaning supplies. And when we're done with it, well, I'll give it a good coat of Bike Lust and that'll make it look better. The one thing is, if it's a Fox fork, make sure to use Fox seals, Manitou fork, RockShox forks. Use the manufactured seals, you'll get the best performance. These are the new Fox fork seals. They're made by SKF. They're really, really slippery. They're very high quality. So we have our dust wiper oil control seals. We have our foam rings. We have our new crush washers, and then this aluminum crush washer is for a talus fork. We're not working on talus, so we don't need this. Recycle that. It's not a good washer to use anywhere else. First thing you want to do with the foam rings is put them in a clean container with fresh fork oil. The Fox Racing Shocks website does have a oil volume website, and it's updated on a regular basis. So this fork is going to take 10 weight green. There's two 10 weights. There's a 10 weight red and there's a 10 weight green. 10 weight red is primarily for fit dampers. 10 weight green is for the lowers and open bath. So we're going to let the foam rings get saturated. Take a clean pick, go in here and fish them out, and I'll just let them drip for a little bit. Sometimes you can get pieces of pipe, whether it's PVC or black pipe, and you can get it to fit that. You don't want to press on the lip of the seal where the spring is, because that can get damaged. So we'll go back to the foam rings, kind of stretch them. You don't really need to squeeze the oil out very much. What we're going to do is we're going to lay it on top of the bushing. Then we're going to take the SKF seal and the tool and wipe some 10 weight green on here. These seals need to be installed wet to protect the skirt. Some manufacturer seals need to be installed dry. So this is a press tool. So we're going to guide it in there, and I just walk it up against the workbench. Give it a couple pushes. You want to make sure that it's square and flush all the way around. So we'll do the second one. Some manufacturers will recommend to put the seals on the lowers, on the stanchions, not on the lowers, and then push them, when the fork is assembled, push them back on together. Problem with that is it's kind of hard to push the seal down with a flat piece of metal. Everything's clean, it's lubricated, it's ready to go. So what I like to do is work on the back side of the fork. We're just going to rotate it in the stand. Because we got a foam ring in the seals, make sure that both rods are extended. We're going to gently walk this up to the stanchion. This is where it gets difficult. There's enough movement in these seals that you can put one stanchion into one lower and then come over and just gently rotate the other stanchion around the seal and it comes back on. The damper cartridge gets pushed up, we got to pull this all back out. So now we're going to fill it. There's two ways of filling this fork, from the bottom or from the top. I prefer going from the bottom. So we're going to turn around and make it upside down. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to have the dropouts lower than the crown because all the oil is going to pour out. And the other thing that you want to make sure is when you use a syringe, don't bottom the syringe in the hole because the air that's inside the fork isn't going to displace very well and it's going to push all the oil out. Make sure that the stanchions are probably about 2/3 of the way extended. So we're going to push in 30 cc's. And you'll want to check the oil chart with what fork you have, whether it's a vanilla, a float, a talus, the new really cool 34 stanchion 29er forks. This leg is going to take 160 cc's. This is a 60 cc syringe. Same thing. We don't want to close the hole off. Onto the stanchions, and when we see both threaded rods coming through, grab our new crusher ring.
To emerging artists.
Grab the two nuts. We're going to torque these nuts to 50 inch-pounds. With a clicker, it's kind of nice because it clicks when it stops. And rotate the fork down. Let all the oil kind of get to the bottom of the open bath damper. On your torque wrench, go ahead and unwind it. It's always a good thing to do. So now we're going to wipe everything down. A lot of people will have forks overhauled and rear shocks overhauled, and after their first ride, have a bunch of oil coming around. That's normal, unless it's really running down the side of the fork. So don't be surprised if there's a little bit of residue that kind of comes up and down for the first ride or so. That'll normally go away. All right, so the next thing what we're gonna do, got it all wiped down, we're gonna Elvis test it. So we're gonna pull it out of the fork, out of the stand. If it's on the bike, essentially this is gonna help show rebound and high-speed compression features. So what we wanna do, so whenever you test the suspension on a suspension fork, and it's not in the bike, put the dropouts between your feet. The reason for this is we're gonna cycle this up and down. And what this is doing is it's purging the air out of the damper cartridge and displacing with oil. And if you were to do it this way, it's very easy for the fork to slip out from underneath you. Now we're going to turn rebound all the way clockwise, which is full closed. See how slowly it comes up? That means we got all the air purged out of the damper. You're going to put the rebound back to a natural setting. Try out the lockout. Lockout's good and firm, but it blows through. There you go. Now go ride.